40 Guns was not just another John Wayne Western, it was a Hollywood train wreck disguised as a movie, a chaotic production where a legendary director openly despised his own script, and a star's alcoholism nearly derailed the entire picture. What audiences saw as a standard odor was actually a battlefield of clashing egos, studio-mandated compromises, and a cast so drunk they could barely find their horses. Behind the scenes of this cult classic, a different kind of war raged one with a director sabotaging his own film, a singer turned actor terrified of his role, and a final product so flawed it forced its creators to remake it 2 years later. These are not just production notes, they are the hangover from one of the most dysfunctional shoots in Hollywood history. Today, we are riding into the chaotic truth with 20 weird facts about 40 Guns. And stay tuned to the end for a bonus fact about the film's original script that is so shocking, it will make you see the entire movie as a tragic missed opportunity. Hit that subscribe button and let's uncover the secrets of the Western that was too drunk to stand up straight. Number 20, Howard Hawks hated the script and tried to sabotage it. This was not just a movie Howard Hawks directed, it was one he famously and openly loathed. The script, written by Lee Brackett and Jules Furthman, was a mess of tonal shifts and cliches that Hawks found insulting to his intelligence. What audiences did not know was that Hawks, a master of cinematic craftsmanship, spent the entire production in a state of passive-aggressive protest. He was not just filming a bad script, he was demonstrating how bad it was by directing with a minimum of effort. He would set up a shot, yell action, and then often walk away, letting the actors fend for themselves. It was not just a lack of direction, it was a deliberate act of cinematic rebellion. Hawks later called it the worst script I ever worked on, and his disinterest is visible in every frame. A director doing a job instead of creating art. Number 19. The film was a revenge project for John Wayne. John Wayne did not just star in 40 Guns, he produced it and he had a specific, petty motivation. The film was made at Batjack, Wayne's own production company, as a project to fulfill a contractual obligation with Warner Brothers. What audiences did not know was that Wayne was furious with the studio for the way they had treated him on a previous film and saw 40 Guns as a chance to deliver a quick, cheap picture and get out of his deal. It was not just a business decision, it was a screw you to the studio. Wayne's focus was not on quality, but on speed and economy. This bottom line mentality infected the entire production, creating an atmosphere where good enough was the standard. The film was not just a movie, it was a contractual punch thrown in a Hollywood feud. Number 18, Dean Martin was cast to create a new Western duo. The casting of Dean Martin as a drunken gunslinger dude was not just a stroke of genius, it was a calculated, desperate gamble by Hawks and Wayne to create a new kind of Western pairing. The classic model was the rugged hero and his rugged sidekick. What audiences did not know was that they deliberately wanted a contrast. The stoic, upright Wayne and the witty, self-destructive Martin. It was not just casting, it was an attempt to reinvent the wheel. Studio executives were terrified, believing Martin, known for his drunk act and nightclub singing, would be laughed off the screen. This was not just a risk, it was a potential career ender for everyone involved. The bet paid off, but only after Martin, terrified of the role, nearly had a breakdown before filming began, convinced he was going to humiliate himself and ruin his career. Number 17, the on-set drinking was not just an act. Dean Martin's portrayal of a drunken sheriff was so convincing because for much of the shoot he was not acting. What audiences did not know was that Martin's famous drunk persona was a full-blown alcohol addiction during this period. And the set of 40 Guns was often a place of genuine, hard partying. It was not just method acting, it was functional alcoholism. John Wayne, a notorious drinker himself, enabled the behavior, and the two would often start the day with a breakfast of whiskey. The rest of the cast and crew had to navigate a work environment where the two stars were frequently intoxicated. This was not just a party atmosphere, it was a professional liability that led to blown lines, forgotten blocking, and shoot days that ran long because the stars were simply too drunk to continue. Number 16. The film's central romance was a last-minute studio addition. The love story between John Wayne's sheriff and Angie Dickinson's feisty rancher's daughter feels tacked on. And that is because it was. The original script had no romance for the sheriff. It was a pure story of professional duty and male bonding. What audiences did not know was that Warner Brothers panicked during test screenings demanded a love interest to soften Wayne's character and give the film a traditional romantic anchor. It was not just a suggestion, it was a mandate. Hawks, already disengaged, shrugged and let the studio insert the scenes. The result is a subplot that feels completely disconnected from the main narrative, a commercial concession that stops the film cold every time it comes up. It was not just a weak storyline, it was a tumor grafted onto the film by nervous executives. Number 15, Ricky Nelson was cast purely to sell tickets. The presence of teen idol Ricky Nelson as Colorado, the young, fresh-faced deputy, has no artistic reason to exist. He was cast for one reason: to put teenage butts in theater seats. What audiences did not know was that this was a pure, cynical commercial decision by Wayne and the studio to tap into Nelson's massive television and music audience. It was not just a casting choice, it was a marketing strategy. Hawks, who preferred grizzled character actors, had no use for Nelson and largely ignored him during the shoot. Nelson's performance is wooden and out of place because he was a marketing tool, not a character. This was not just a bit part, it was a walking, talking advertisement, a symbol of the commercial compromises that hollowed out the film from the inside. Number 14. The film was shot in a hurry, and it shows. The entire production schedule for 40 Guns was brutally fast, a reflection of John Wayne's desire to fulfill his contract and move on. What audiences did not know was that the film was shot in just a few weeks, a breakneck pace for a complex Western. This rush is visible in the final product. The lighting is often flat, the framing is sometimes careless, and there is a general lack of the polished, composed style that defines Howard Hawks' best work. It was not just an efficient shoot, it was a cinematic assembly line. Hawks, who was known for his meticulous preparation, had no time for his usual process. He was shooting from the hip, literally and figuratively, and the film's sloppy, uneven quality is the direct result of a production that valued speed over artistry. Number 13, there was a major on-set conflict between Wayne and Dickinson. Angie Dickinson, in her film debut, was young, beautiful, and not afraid to speak her mind. John Wayne, the alpha male of the set, was not used to being challenged. What audiences did not know was that the two clashed repeatedly on set, particularly over the forced romantic scenes. Dickinson felt the dialogue was cheesy and demeaning, and she argued with Wayne about her character's motivation. It was not just a creative disagreement, it was a battle of wills between an old Hollywood titan and a modern independent actress. Wayne, used to deference, was reportedly taken aback by Dickinson's refusal to simply smile and look pretty. The tension between them is barely visible on screen, but it adds a layer of genuine conflict to their scenes, a real-life power struggle playing out under the hot studio lights. Number 12, the film's title is almost completely arbitrary. The title, 40 Guns, refers to the number of men in the villain's posse. It is a cool, punchy title, but it has almost nothing to do with the actual story, which is about a sheriff and his deputies defending a town. What audiences did not know was that the title was a last-minute marketing decision, chosen because it sounded more exciting and action-packed than the film's actual content. It was not just a name, it was a bait and switch. The film is more of a character study and a siege drama than a big-scale gunfight, but the title promises an epic battle that never fully materializes. This disconnect between the title and the film is a perfect metaphor for the entire production, a promise of excitement that delivers a much more horror-muddled, compromised reality. Number 11, the editing process was a nightmare to salvage a coherent story. With a weak script, rushed shooting, and often intoxicated performances, the task of editor Christian Niebe was less about creating art and more about performing triage. What audiences did not know was that Niebe had to sift through mountains of footage to find a coherent narrative thread. It was not just a job, it was a rescue mission. Hawks, disengaged as he was, would often shoot multiple takes of the same scene with different line readings, leaving Niebe to piece together a performance in post-production. The film's awkward pacing and tonal shifts are a direct result of this desperate editing process. Niebe managed to create a watchable film, but the seams are always showing. It was not just a cut, it was a cinematic patch-up job on a patient that was barely alive to begin with. Number 10, the film was a box office hit but a critical embarrassment. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we are about to get to the heart of why this film is so weird and it all comes down to its reception. Despite its chaotic production and obvious flaws, 40 Guns was a solid box office success, largely thanks to the star power of Wayne and Martin. What audiences did not know was that this commercial success made the film an even bigger embarrassment for Howard Hawks and serious critics. It proved, in their view, that audiences would accept any old junk as long as it had the right names above the title. It was not just a bad review, it was an indictment of popular taste. The film's financial victory, coupled with its artistic failure, became a cautionary tale in Hollywood, used as an example of everything wrong with the studio system. This paradox is the film's true legacy, a smash hit that everyone involved was ashamed of. Number 9. The film is essentially a rough draft of Rio Bravo. The most damning fact about 40 Guns is that it serves as a clear, clunky blueprint for a masterpiece. Howard Hawks and John Wayne were so disappointed with the film that just 2 years later, they remade it as Rio Bravo. What audiences did not know was that Rio Bravo was not just a similar film, it was a direct do-over. A chance to fix every mistake they made on 40 Guns. The core plot, the sheriff and his mismatched deputies holding a prisoner against overwhelming odds, is identical. But this time, the script was good, the romance was integrated, and the tone was consistent. It was not just a new movie, it was an apology. Watching 40 Guns after seeing Rio Bravo is like looking at the architect's discarded first sketch. You can see the brilliant idea struggling to break through a layer of incompetence. Number 8. Angie Dickinson was discovered in a television commercial. Angie Dickinson's debut is one of the film's few bright spots, a star-making performance that crackles with energy. Her casting story is pure Hollywood lore. What audiences did not know was that Hawk's wife discovered Dickinson on television, specifically in a commercial for a hair product called White Rain. It was not just a casting call, it was a moment of inspiration from the most unlikely of sources. Hawks was so struck by her confident, direct-to-camera presence that he demanded a screen test. She beat out hundreds of more experienced actresses for the part. This was not just a lucky break, it was a legendary eye for talent, spotting a future star in a 30-second ad, proving that sometimes Hollywood's next leading lady is just one shampoo commercial away. Number 7, Walter Brennan was the highest paid supporting actor in Hollywood. As the grizzled, scene-stealing Stumpy, Walter Brennan was, by 1957, an institution, but his status was more than just critical acclaim, it was financial. What audiences did not know was that Brennan was the highest paid supporting actor in Hollywood, commanding a salary that was higher than many lead actors. It was not just a paycheck, it was a testament to his unparalleled box office draw. For 40 Guns, his presence was a form of insurance, a guarantee of quality and audience goodwill in a production that was otherwise shaky. Brennan's performance is a masterclass in comic relief and pathos, a professional doing his job flawlessly, even as the film crumbles around him. He was not just an actor, he was the film's anchor, the one element that could not be compromised. Number 6, the film's source novel was a massive bestseller. The film was based on the novel The Guns of El Dorado by Frank B. Gilmore, which was a huge bestseller upon its release in 1956. What audiences did not know was that the film rights were purchased in a competitive bidding war, with John Wayne's Batjack outbidding several major studios. It was not just a property, it was a valuable asset. The studio's belief was that the name recognition of the novel would guarantee a built-in audience. This is one of the reasons the film was rushed into production. They wanted to strike while the book's popularity was at its peak. The film's failure to capture the novel's tone and spirit makes its success feel even more like a missed opportunity. A great story squandered by a chaotic production. Number 5, the film's famous intro shot was a technical nightmare. The film opens with a long, audacious tracking shot following a stagecoach as it is approached by a lone horseman. It is a brilliant piece of cinematography, but it was a nightmare to execute. What audiences did not know was that the shot required multiple cameras, carefully laid track, and a horseman who could hit his marks perfectly while riding at a full gallop. The shot took an entire day to film and cost a small fortune, a huge portion of the film's already tight budget. It was not just a cool opening, it was a high-stakes technical gamble. The fact that this one perfect shot exists in a film so otherwise sloppy is a testament to the crew's professionalism and a Reminder of the film's fractured identity, a moment of brilliance in a sea of mediocrity. Number 4. The dude character was originally written for a different actor. The role of the drunken gunslinger, Dude, which made Dean Martin a movie star, was not originally written for him. What audiences did not know was that the role was initially conceived for an older, more weathered character actor like Robert Mitchum or even Walter Brennan. The idea of a charming, boyish drunk was a late-breaking invention. It was not just a change in casting, it was a fundamental reimagining of the character's archetype. When Martin was cast, the script was slightly altered to play to his strengths, his wit, his crooning, his cool persona. This transformation from a grimy drunk to a lovable loser is what makes the character work, and it is a happy accident that emerged from the chaos of the casting process. Number 3. The film's cattle drive scene was a real logistical mess. The film features a scene where a large herd of cattle is driven through town. It is a classic Western set piece, but filming it was a real-life headache. What audiences did not know was that the local wranglers hired for the scene were not as skilled as the production hoped. The cattle were unruly, constantly breaking formation and wandering into private property. It was not just a shot, it was a rodeo. The shoot ran dangerously over schedule, with the cast and crew forced to wait for hours as cowboys on horseback tried to round up 1,000 head of confused cattle. The frustration and exhaustion you see on the faces of the actors in that scene is not just acting. It is the authentic exhaustion of people who have spent all day watching a cattle drive fall apart. Number 2, the film is a transitional Western stuck between two eras. 40 Guns exists in a strange cinematic limbo. It is too traditional and studio-bound to be a revisionist Western, but it is too cynical and messy to be a classic Golden Age odor. What audiences did not know was that the film is a perfect example of a transitional work, caught between the death of the old studio system and the birth of a more cynical, character-driven era. It contains elements of both the heroic sheriff, the clear villain, but also the flawed, drunken sidekick and the sense of professional weariness that would define later Westerns. It was not just a movie, it was a bridge. The film's failure is that it does not successfully commit to either style, leaving it in a weird, unsatisfying middle ground that feels both dated and ahead of its time. Number 1, the film only exists because Wayne and Hawks owed each other a favor. The ultimate reason 40 Guns was made is not artistic passion, but a sense of obligation. Howard Hawks and John Wayne were friends, but their previous collaboration, Red River, had ended in a bitter feud over the film's ending. What audiences did not know was that 40 Guns was a peace offering, a project Wayne specifically brought to Hawks to mend fences and get back to work together. It was not just a movie, it was a makeup project. This explains why Hawks, who would normally never touch such a weak script, agreed to do it. He was doing a favor for a friend. The film's chaotic, joyless production is a direct result of this foundation. It was a movie made out of obligation, not inspiration, a professional courtesy that ended up as a professional embarrassment for both men. Bonus fact, a phantom script by William Faulkner was discovered decades later. The most shocking secret about 40 Guns lies in its origins. Before the script by Brackett and Firthman, Howard Hawks had commissioned his frequent collaborator, the Nobel Prize-winning novelist William Faulkner, to write a draft. Faulkner's version, which was long thought lost, was discovered in the Hawks archive in the 1990s. What audiences did not know was that Faulkner's script was a dark, complex, and psychologically brutal masterpiece. It was far more violent. The characters were deeply flawed, and the dialogue was poetic and harsh. Hawks abandoned it not because it was bad, but because he and Wayne knew it was unfilmable in 1957 and would get an X rating from the censors. The discovery of this phantom script revealed that 40 Guns was not just a failed movie. It was a cynical, watered-down version of a masterpiece that was too dark for its time. The film we have is a ghost, a pale imitation of the dark, Faulknerian epic it could have been. 40 Guns stands today not as a great Western, but as a fascinating and instructive failure. It is a film that proves that talent, even in massive quantities, is not enough to guarantee success. What we see on screen is a collision of artistic apathy, commercial compromise, and personal baggage, a perfect storm of bad decisions that somehow resulted in a watchable, if deeply flawed, movie. The film's legacy is its role as a cautionary tale and a rough draft. It serves as a vital lesson in what not to do, and its existence makes the triumph of Rio Bravo all the more meaningful. It is a reminder that even the greatest filmmakers can have an off day, and that sometimes the most important step in the creative process is knowing when to throw it all away and start over. The next time you watch 40 Guns, remember the director who hated his script, the star who was just fulfilling a contract, and the drunk who was actually drunk. Remember that you are watching not just a Western, but a Hollywood train wreck that somehow made it to the station. Because in Hollywood, as in the West, sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that barely hold together. Hit that notification bell and join us as we continue to explore the glorious failures that teach us the most. 40 Guns might not be enough to win a war, but sometimes they are just enough to tell a damn good story about how not to make a movie.